So let's finally get to the point where we can see the real advantage of Express. Before we do that, let's make sure we don't always have to manually quit the server and restart it. For that, I'll quick it one last time, and now let's install a new library with npm install, and that is NodeMon. Install it with --save-dev, because this will be a development-only library. We'll not use it in our code, but to simplify our development flow, our development process. Because NodeMon is a tool powered by Node.js, which actually will execute JavaScript files with Node.js, but it will not just execute them, but also watch them, watch all files in the project folder, and whenever any file changes, it will restart the server automatically. So whenever we save a file with changes in it, it will restart the server. For that, we need to use NodeMon to run our app.js file, and for that, in turn, we can go to package.json and use a so-called script. Scripts are simply, well, short utility scripts we can execute, and here we can add a start script, and the name should be start, and then, for example, execute node app.js. With that, if I run npm start, I execute this script. By the way, start is a special name. If the script would be named differently, for example, dev, you would have to run npm run dev. Only for start and test, you can omit the run keyword and directly run test, or in our case, start. Now, if we do that, then this code here will execute. So in this case, node app.js, which is the same as before. Now, that's not what I want here. Instead here, let's quit that server and use NodeMon. NodeMon is this package we just installed, and this is available as an executable inside of this project. It's not available globally on your machine. Executing NodeMon there most likely will fail unless you installed it globally before. But inside of these scripts, any dependency here, which is an executable script or executable tool, will be available. So now if we save this package.json file with that change made, if we execute npm start again, this will use NodeMon. We see a more colorful output there. And in the end, this executes app.js, which is great. But now you will see that if I change something, for example, here on this response, I add user : as an extra text, and I hit save, you see this restarts. And hence here, we see that change in action without us manually quitting and restarting the server, which of course is great. So that's a little convenience added. Leave that process running. You can always quit it with Ctrl+C once you're done for the day. And with that, let's actually focus on our logic here. Because now I want to make sure that I actually am able to parse the incoming request in a more comfortable way, that we don't have to manually parse it. For this, I'll install a new package, and here I will quit the server just to install that new package, which will not do all the time. And this package is named body-parser. Install it with --save, because this will now be a package which we use actively in our code. And thereafter run npm start again to start NodeMon again. Now this is a package which I import here under body-parser. You can name the constant however you want. From body-parser into app.js. Body-parser gives us ready-to-use middlewares, which we can use in Express apps, to parse incoming request bodies. It allows us to get rid of all that code in our first middleware, and instead of writing our own function, here we can write body-parser.json or .url encoded. .json will become important later. This will allow us to automatically parse all incoming requests for JSON data. Here, I will get a regular form data, which the browser generates for me when I click the submit button. And hence here, I will use URL encoded. To that, you need to pass an object to configure it and set extended to false here in this case. Now, this will parse all incoming requests and try to extract any data which is in their body if it's of type URL encoded data, which will be the case for such a submitted form. It will also call next for us, so it will also automatically move on to middlewares after this. Now, in addition, I now want to handle a post request in a specific middleware. And for that, instead of using use, which allows us to register a middleware that runs on all incoming requests, I will use post, which allows me to register a middleware which only triggers on incoming post requests. So where the HTTP verb is post. Then here, I want to have my middleware function with request, response, and next. And in there, I want to return this response. Now I also don't need to return it anymore because there is no code thereafter which I would want to skip. We can now get rid of that if statement. Request body will exist, by the way, because the body parser automatically creates and populates such a field on the request object. However, the username will be available under the name we picked here on the input. So there I picked username, so I have to use username here as well. Now that other middleware here also shouldn't trigger on all requests, but let's say on get requests. So here I can use get instead of use. And now we're filtering for requests which use a get method. If we now save this, everything will restart automatically. And if I now hit enter on my URL again, I get an error. Now I do get this error because get and post actually need at least two arguments. The first argument is not the middleware function itself, but a string which identifies the path, so the thing in the URL after our domain, which should trigger this middleware. So we're not just filtering by HTTP method, but also by path. And here I want to filter for a slash, which means for a request targeting slash, this function will run. So if I now save this and I hit enter again, we see the form. If I enter slash users here, we don't see it. So it is really just slash. You can also add such a filter on app use, but there it's not mandatory. And also it will work as a starting filter. So slash would work for all requests that start with a slash after the domain, which means really all requests. Slash users would handle all requests that start with slash users after the domain, even if it's slash users slash new. Here for get it's different. It has to be exact match and the path is not optional. It has to be provided instead. Same for post. And we can also take this as a chance and, for example, use slash user here as a URL and tweak the form to provide the action attribute to tell the browser where to send the request to so that it sends it to slash user. So the domain slash user. If we now save this again and I hit enter here, we get the form. If I enter menu, you see the URL changed to slash user, and indeed, we see the user being output here. And that's really important. The username here, we didn't have to parse it on our own. Instead, this built-in middleware did it for us. And that's the power of Express. We have this middleware-based approach, which allows us to create our own middlewares, which is very useful to funnel a request through multiple steps and the response as well. But we can also plug in existing third-party library middlewares to get functionality like this body parsing out of the box without having to write the logic on our own, which of course really simplifies things for us and allows us to focus on our core business logic.